I did everything right and they indicted me.
And I don't know what the I'm doing.
Antifa!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. We are so thrilled to be talking to you. We have a wonderful show for you today. We have 3 guests and a preview of an amazing discussion. So the preview that we'll be playing at the end of the show will be a preview of a discussion that I hosted between John Mearsheimer and Yanis Varoufakis. Very excited to be playing that for you. And the full discussion, which is at least an hour long, that will be available tonight on Patreon right after the stream. So if you're not already Patreon supporters, please become Patreon supporters at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. We are also going to be speaking to Samira Mohyeddin, who is a wonderful Canadian journalist. She's been on the show before, and we'll get into this later. But basically, she was critical of a Canadian journalist, Jesse Brown. Jesse Brown was very angry that she was critical of him. He thought that I invited him to debate. It was actually a joke, but he really wanted to debate. So then I said he could come on and debate someone else, Daniel Maté. And then for reasons I'll get into later, it wasn't a good fit for my channel. So Daniel Maté released it on his channel and you can watch it there. But it did not include a rebuttal that Jesse made of Samira. Jesse then accused me of trying to bury this. We'll get into that later. Just know that we will be playing Jesse's rebuttal and we'll have Samira responding to it. Okay, but that is the third segment of the show. I'm going to talk about the rest of the show. We were going to be speaking to second on the show will be Jawad Ali. He's going to be talking to us about an attack on his family home in Palestine. He's a Palestinian American lawyer, and his family home in Palestine was attacked by settlers with fire while his family was inside the house. We will be talking about that. But before that, we're going to be talking to Oliver Larkin, who is taking on the establishment, taking on the Zionist establishment, taking on Jared Moskowitz. He is running for Congress in Florida, and he's part of this, insurgent movement that we've seen be so successful in New York, and we're going to see if it's successful in other places, including Florida. So without further ado, got to remind everyone to like the stream if you haven't already liked it, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, because that way you don't miss any of the extra streams that we do. This Friday, we will be talking to, among other people, Dennis Kucinich, none other than Dennis Kucinich, former congressman, mayor of Cleveland, and presidential nominee. He's going to be talking to us about the effort to link basically the Israeli and U.S. militaries, because why even pretend that they're separate at this point? So we are really thrilled to welcome onto the show Oliver Larkin. Welcome, Oliver.
Thanks so much for having me on, Katie. Excited for the conversation.
Yes, of course. So tell us, Oliver, why you are running. I mean, we're going to get into your policies, your campaign, but tell us about your story and why you decided to run for Congress.
Yeah, I'm running as a first-time candidate, but someone who spent a decade in the progressive movement. Back when I was a line cook in 2015, following my college years, I was inspired by Bernie Sanders and actually quit my job as a line cook, making the federal minimum wage, and drove to New Hampshire to volunteer and got on the staff and traveled the country for the progressive movement. Was directly inspired by Bernie's call for $15 an hour when I was making $7.25 over a hot grill, when I had $750 a month in student loan payments, and he was talking about college for all. This kind of direct connection to our material conditions was exactly what inspired me to get involved with that campaign. And once that campaign was over, I went to unionize my workplace with the News Guild Communication Workers of America, standing up for my coworkers and myself, our dignity, our rights on the job, our at-will employment, making sure that we had protection so that our bosses could not just unilaterally lay us off, as I was laid off, brought back, and then was asked to join an organizing committee. And I think that's really central and was in line with many of my comrades on the Sanders campaign, establishing the Campaign Workers Guild that is organized unions with the DNC, the DCCC, Bernie 2020, Biden-Harris 2024, really returning the Democratic Party to its working class labor roots, despite the efforts of the corporate wing of the establishment. I think it's so central to the crisis that we see, the identity crisis in the Democratic Party today, that they talk a big game about good paying union jobs, and yet they treat their own people as expendable, while we see the same failed consultants that lost the election to Donald Trump, arguing for why democratic socialists like myself have no place in this party. And what we're up against in this district against Jared Moskowitz is someone who, in the weeks following the 2024 election, he was the first Democrat to join the Doge caucus. He was the only Florida Democrat to vote for the Laken-Riley Act, the pro-ICE legislation, after Donald Trump promised mass detentions and deportations on the 2024 campaign trail. And someone who was appointed twice by Ron DeSantis and is now campaigning openly as a DeSantis Democrat. I mean, what are we doing? So I'm rejecting all corporate PAC money and running on Medicare for all, $25 minimum wage, universal child care, and ending U.S. military support for genocide and apartheid with our unconditional support for Israel. We need to bring these taxpayer dollars home and invest in America and restore the American dream. That's what our campaign is about, and very excited by this democratic socialist movement we're building all across the country.
Great. Yeah, it's very exciting to hear about. I thought we could talk about some of your most important issues, the issues that are most important to you, what you're most excited about being able to do if you were to be elected.
Yeah, I think it's really central to my story as a union organizer. I was actually just over on the other side of the state this morning with SEIU 1199 workers that are currently in a bargaining session with HCA Healthcare, the largest private for-profit hospital corporation in the world. When Rick Scott was, before he was ever a politician, he was CEO of Columbia HCA when he perpetrated the largest Medicare fraud in United States history at the time in the 1990s, pled the fifth 75 times, got a $300 million stock option golden parachute that he then used to launch his political career. And when we have someone in Jared Moskowitz who is taking the corporate PAC money and trading the stocks of HCA, not standing on the side of the working class, union rights, unions for all. This is something that we're seeing with Assemblymember Claire Valdez winning her election in a landslide in New York City last week, and other union organizers. I think this is really central, again, to the identity crisis that the Democratic Party is facing. And too often the conversation begins and ends with passing the PRO Act. But we need to go further than that. We need to repeal Taft-Hartley. We need to repeal the Railway Labor Act. We need to restore public sector workers' right to strike, allowing for solidarity strikes and boycotts. This is central to our freedom of speech, our freedom of assembly, our freedom of protest. These are First Amendment rights that are under attack with the anti-labor laws that we have on the books in this country. And I think, when we had unions building the middle class in the struggle to come out of the robber barons era, and we're really so central to the New Deal era of American politics that while it excluded some people, it really built a working class democracy for more people. And that is the kind of Democratic Party that I want to go to Washington and fight for, and not just for a party, but for the people that party represents, because ultimately a political party is just a vehicle that you get in, you get out of, if it gets you to the destination that you're trying to reach. So I believe this outside pressure that the DSA is bringing to the Democratic Party it's to the good. It's to the ultimate good. And we're giving people a reason to join the Democratic Party in Florida because of this challenge, because we're in a closed primary state and we need to get people organized to affect this kind of change with unions for all and rebuilding the middle class in Washington.
Great. Yeah. And we are going to actually show some of Jared Moskowitz's positions. Let's take a look at a video of him reacting to let's see, we have he's like called a Democrat, which is crazy, but he voted yay in 2025 on a House resolution denouncing the horrors of socialism. Today joined Republicans in blocking the Lebanon War Powers resolution put forward by Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib from Michigan. And here are some videos that your team, I believe, compiled of some of his political positions. So let's take a look at this video.
And sorry, Katie, is this going to be
A1, A01?
Great, thank you.
What I would like to see actually is a little tougher language coming out of the Trump administration. I'm to the right of this issue to the J.D. Vance Witkoff approach, and I agree, quite frankly, more with Senator Lindsey Graham and probably Senator Tom Cotton, Iran is the weakest they've been in a period of time. Now is not the time to appease them. Now is the time to put maximum pressure on them and make sure that we dismantle the nuclear program.
Okay, so that's just one issue. So he is bragging about being to the right of J.D. Vance and Witkoff on Iran.
Yeah, and this is someone who, as a sitting member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, bought Lockheed Martin stock on 4 separate occasions leading up to this illegal war that Donald Trump started with Iran. And when Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie introduced their bipartisan Iran war powers resolution in Congress back in February, it was Jared Moskowitz and Josh Gottheimer and Jewish Insider that were the 2 Democrats immediately coming out opposed to this legislation. Jared Moskowitz even called it the Ayatollah Protection Act. And what happened after he gave Trump this permission slip to take us to war? Lockheed Martin stock that Jared Moskowitz purchased hit an all-time high on the market the Monday after these strikes began, and he's purchased even more defense stock in the months since this illegal war started. So this is someone who's not only aligned with the Republican Party in rhetoric, he's actually personally profiting from this death and destruction that the United States is bringing with bombing girls' schools in Minab, killing hundreds of innocent children and school teachers. And for every dollar that we're spending on these illegal wars, it's money that we're taking out of our healthcare, our housing, our education. And we have members of Congress that are profiting from it. It's completely sick. It's deranged. And he has no business with a D next to his name when he's adopting these kinds of positions.
Right. I know he said this himself. It's not even like he almost cut his own attack ad against himself.
He does that a lot.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, he does that a lot.
So we actually have something else I want to play, which is a clip of Moskowitz reacting to the aforementioned DSA sweep in New York with Wolf Blitzer on CNN.
That the New York City mayor endorsed basically won yesterday. What was your reaction to what happened?
Well, I mean, look, we're going to lose 2 good members in New York that, one had served for 4 years, one had been there for 10 years. But this is what elections are about, right? I mean, New York City is different than Florida. Florida is different than California. Texas is different than New York. People get elected in different areas. We have districts there that are, I don't know, what are they, D20s, D30s, D40s. So the primary is what matters. Obviously, they're very progressive seats. The DSA has been increasing their power in New York. They got
socialists.
The Democratic Socialists of America. They have a mayor, and he's obviously flexing his power. Thankfully, we live in Florida, and we don't have Democratic Socialists like they have in New York. Like that's something that people in New York are going to have to decide whether they want to stay there and deal with those policies or leave.
Okay, so they don't have Democratic Socialists in Florida. It's not like indigenous to the climate there or something. Explain, please.
I'm going to actually read a headline from the Miami Herald this morning. A Mamdani-inspired Democratic Socialist swayed Florida unions against a Democratic incumbent. That's what's in the local news today. So I think Congressman Moskowitz may be in a state of denial right now, but on the heels of these New York City wins, we've got Fox News and Newsmax saying, is Democratic Socialist Oliver Larkin going to be the next one to knock off a Democratic incumbent?
Wow.
And again, when you look at a Democratic primary electorate, I've gone door to door so many times, and people are not afraid of democratic socialism. They're afraid of ICE going door to door and kidnapping their neighbors with the permission that Jared Moskowitz has given them as the only Florida Democrat to vote for the Lake and Riley Act. So Congressman Moskowitz is going to get more questions about democratic socialism as our campaign continues to build our popularity. And really, this cuts to the heart of the Florida Democratic Party, and this rightward tilt that the party has taken has just led to the utter collapse of our competitiveness statewide. I mean, I'm running to represent Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach County. This is like the deep, deep blue part of Florida. And as we've had the stewardship of Jared Moskowitz, we've seen it tilt further and further to the right because the Democratic base has nothing to turn out for when we're so motivated by opposing Doge and opposing ICE and opposition to Ron DeSantis. Why would we nominate someone who joined Doge, who supports the Lake and Riley Act, and who's bragging about working with Ron DeSantis? It would be a profound mistake, and I think is really just central to the challenge that the establishment is having when they see candidates like ourselves, like Democratic Socialists, that are offering the working class in America something real, something to believe in.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Jared, for offering me the chance to leave New York. I'm going to have to think long and hard now that Claire Valdez was elected and Daria Lisa was elected and Brad Lander. I don't know. I guess he thinks that he must have friends who say that they're no longer safe now because of these victories.
Yeah, and I mean, on this issue, there's no meaningful difference between Jared Moskowitz and the Republicans that we're running against on the other side of the aisle. I mean, Scott Singer, the former mayor of Boca Raton, when Zohran Mamdani was elected mayor of New York City, Scott Singer purchased ads through the city of Boca Raton's budget in Times Square, inviting wealthy New Yorkers to move down to Boca, move down to our district. But in South Florida, we also have a housing affordability crisis. We don't want more wealthy out-of-state people driving up the cost of living. That's causing my generation and younger people to have to be moved out, or also seniors on fixed incomes. I mean, people who came to Florida with the promise of an affordable, secure retirement that are now being priced out by the billionaires and the Epstein class that are buying up more and more of our housing stock in conjunction with the private equity and corporate landlords that Jared Moskowitz takes money from, same as the Republican Party. You know, so often, you know, Democrats that run to the right give voters no meaningful difference, and that's why they sit on their butt and stay home. That's why Kamala Harris got 7 million fewer votes than Joe Biden did. Despite the flaws of the Biden campaign, he still adopted. He realized he had to adopt a progressive message, and that's something that the Democratic Party in recent years has just gone so far away from.
Right. Last question, because I know you don't have a lot of time, and we are going to be bringing you back on to have a more in-depth conversation another time. But we're really grateful for this short intro. Tell us about some of the most exciting endorsements that you've received, and also tell us about some of the people that you are excited about who have either already won their races or are running right now.
Yeah, last night we got 2 incredible endorsements. We had a virtual rally that had so many tens of thousands of people from across the country participating, and we announced the endorsements of the Dream Defenders, the movement for racial justice founded in the wake of the murder of Trayvon Martin in Florida in 2012. By Philip Agnew, one of the senior advisors to Bernie Sanders' 2020 campaign. We got the Dream Defenders endorsement. We got SEIU, Florida Public Services Union, representing 20,000 unionized workers across the state of Florida, including in the northern part of our district in Palm Beach County. So we're building this labor support. We're building the grassroots support with Senator Nina Turner, who was also on stream with us last night. And I've always been so inspired by Senator Turner. I remember working in a Bernie Sanders campaign office when she flipped her endorsement from Hillary Clinton to Senator Sanders, and then had the opportunity to work with her at the Sanders inspired organization, Our Revolution. So Senator Turner has been a mentor to me, someone who was really a canary in the coal mine when it comes to standing up and running in elections where AIPAC and the pro-Israel lobby is going to dump untold millions of dollars. I mean, her special election in 2021, she raised over $7 million. And, you know, DMFI and United Democracy Project and these other arms of the AIPAC lobby, you know, just dumped so much money into her race. So she's someone that I've gone to for counsel for a great deal of issues, you know, just how we build this movement. And then, of course, being the very first federally endorsed DSA candidate of the election cycle, and very proud to see DSA candidates like Chris Rabb winning in Philadelphia.
That's because he came on the Katie Halper show.
Yeah,
the Katie Halper show bump, which you're going to get now.
Yeah, the Katie bump.
Yeah.
So Chris, Daria Lisa, Claire, pulling for Melat Kiros. If you happen to be watching this in time to turn out to the polls in Denver, Colorado, my brother-in-law voted for Melat, and you know, I feel very good about getting Melat in there as well. This is a movement that's building all across the country, and there are so many phenomenal candidates inspired by DSA and by other progressive organizations. So we're really pulling for all of them. And one thing that I'm looking forward to when we win this race is, you know, forming a real formation, a socialists in office bloc in the United States Congress. We've seen the House Freedom Caucus to really great effect, despite how much I disagree with them on pretty much everything. They understand power and how to use their leverage. And that's something that the left needs to understand with these incredibly tight margins that we see in the House of Representatives. We can extract real material concessions if we're willing to move with discipline and courage, and not toe the party line, and not be afraid of going to Washington, D.C. and making some enemies, and maybe just being a one-term representative. If that's what it's going to take to move this country in a more progressive direction, then I'm happy to be part of the movement that is helping to do that.
Last question. I just thought of this actually. What is your response to this claim that we've been hearing more and more about how people like Daria Lisa and Claire Valdez, they're only being elected by like white elites. Have you heard this talking point?
I mean, it's so bizarre because millennials and Gen Z were the most diverse and really downwardly mobile generations in American history. So I think what Claire and Daria Lisa represent is really an experience that is so common with our generation, where we're raised to believe in aspirations like home ownership and having a secure retirement, and yet most Americans don't even have $1,000 in the bank to cover an emergency expense. So this kind of wealthy, out of touch, I find it very disingenuous to look down on people who try to better themselves and obtain an education, even if they're taking out tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt, as I did, and I'm still paying down my student loans. No, it's disingenuous, and it's really, you got to look at the money and where the money is coming from. And these attacks are coming from corporate candidates that are taking money from the real estate lobby, from AIPAC, from other organizations, AI, cryptocurrency, that have a vested interest in maintaining the current political power structure in this country. And candidates like Daria Lisa and Claire and Chris and myself and Melat are changing it, and we're challenging that.
Great. Well, best of luck, and we will talk to you soon. Tell us where people can find out more about the campaign and when the election is.
Yeah, www.oliverforcongress.com. That's where you can find our website, find us on social media. Our primary election is August 18th. We are 7 weeks to the day, 49 days out. The voter registration deadline in Florida is July 20th, 29 days before the election. You must be a registered Democrat in order to participate in our primary. I don't like it. It's one of the most restrictive primary conditions in the country, but you must be a registered Democrat in order to participate. And for those watching today on June 30th, our end of quarter fundraising deadline is right around the corner at 11:59 tonight. So when you go to the website, pitch in a few bucks. We're not taking any corporate or AIPAC money or anything else. So the only special interest I'm here to serve is you.
Great. One last question. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this, because I see our friend of the show is in the chat, and he says, "End blockade of Cuba." This is someone who I know personally, and I know he is from Cuba. And he still has family living there. He lives in Florida. And yet, despite that, for some crazy reason, doesn't want to see Cubans starve, including his father. Obviously, I'm making fun of the people who claim to care about Cuban people and want the country to be starved. So what's your position on Cuba?
Yeah, Cuba sí bloqueo. No, we're completely opposed to the blockade. This is collective punishment of the Cuban people. And, if the United States has to bring all of this pressure to bear in an effort to show the failure of the Cuban government, I mean, they've been putting their thumb on the scale and using these inhumane tactics for over 60 years. And despite that, the sovereignty of the Cuban people has endured. This is one of our natural neighbors and partners. We should have a cooperative relationship with the Cuban government, with the Cuban people, and stop oppressing, an entire nation of people, as the United States so often does with our Latin American and Caribbean neighbors.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Oliver. We will link to your website, and we will see you before you get elected. We'll have another chat with you.
Awesome. It was great to be on, Katie. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Have a great night. Okay, that was really great. Everyone give this a thumbs up if you haven't already. Everyone subscribe so you don't miss any of our streams. Again, we're going to be having a great one on Friday at 12 noon, and we'll be talking to Dennis Kucinich. Also, make sure that you stay throughout this whole stream. You're going to love it. We're going to do a great segment with Samira where we talk about a lot of important things, where we respond to Jesse Brown's claims about Samira, claims about anti-Zionism. And also, we're going to show you a clip, like a full clip of an interview I did with the wonderful Yanis Varoufakis and John Mearsheimer. It's a discussion about politics, about everything from Iran to China. And again, if you want to see that full discussion, it will be available to Patreon subscribers at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Once again, that is patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Now, if you can't afford $5 a month, which is only 25 cents a day, Monday through Friday, but you still want to make the show happen, because we really could not do the show without your support, you can do that by becoming Patreon supporters for $1 a month. So that's $12 a year. Okay, we are going to bring on our next guest, and I'm very honored to be speaking to our next guest. He's going to be talking to us about something extremely important, and it's also something that we have covered before on the show. We've had other Palestinian Americans whose family homes have been attacked, whose relatives have been attacked and even killed. So we are excited and also, honored to speak to Jawad Ali, who is a Palestinian American attorney whose family home was attacked by a violent Israeli mob while there were a family inside the house. So welcome, Jawad.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you for having me on your show.
Of course. So I want to start out by saying, of course, so sorry about what happened. I mean, words kind of fail. It feels a little silly to even say that about something so serious. But before we get into the story of what happened to your family and to your family's home, tell us a little bit about your story, your family's trajectory, where they're from, etc.
Sure. We are a third generation American family. My father and my mom immigrated here in the 1950s and lived the American dream, worked hard, and tried to bring us up and arm us with education, which was the only thing they could do for us. Both of them wanted us to be Palestinian Americans and not only Americans. They were very, very, intentional about keeping us in touch with our culture and knowing, who we are. And frankly, choosing the best of both cultures. So, it's kind of like when I think of who am I can't separate my Americanism from my Palestinian background. One could say that I may not belong completely there and I may not belong completely here, but I bring the best of both, to play. And that, is basically the story of our family. In order for them to keep us in touch with our culture, they built a family home back, in our home country, literally just a few miles from where our village, where my father originally came from, and that happens to be just northeast of Ramallah, about 6 miles northeast of Ramallah. And we've had this family home since the early 80s. And the intention is that whoever wants to go live there, visit, spend the summers, do whatever they want at their leisure, and connect with the culture.
Right.
I am, I live in the U.S. and my mom passed away a long time ago, unfortunately, and my father lived to be 96 years old. And when he was in his 70s, he wanted to retire and relax there, so he started spending more time there. And he was in good health and could look after himself. But various siblings would go different times. When he became ill, one of my sisters, who was close to the age of retirement, decided to go and look after him and live with him. And then she fell in love with the place and decided to retire there. And her name is Maysoon Ali, and she lives in our family home, and I visit every 3 months. I'm a lawyer. I travel quite a bit, so I frequent the Middle East, very often. On the 14th of June, I was attending my daughter's graduation here in the U.S. and from college, and I got a call from my sister. I picked up, thinking she's going to congratulate me on the graduation, but unfortunately, she was very distraught and really in a panic stage. And the words that came out of her mouth is, "They're trying to burn us alive." And I said, "Who?" And she said, "The settlers. The settlers are on our veranda. They're trying to burn the house while myself and my husband are inside." And I cannot tell you how I felt. Like, I will never forget that feeling. First feeling, scared, helpless, and trying to just guide my sister through those moments with her husband. And they, thankfully, they were not harmed, but only because of the quick reaction that they both had. And, we live in fear. This is not the first time. Our house and our property has been attacked by, they call them settlers. I'm going to define them as they are. They are, terrorists who are hell-bent on just harming Palestinians. And this time, they're harming Palestinian Americans.
Right.
She quickly put a protocol that we have, believe it or not, that we had to think of this day because in 2023, they've attacked us, but could not get to the house. They only got into our property and tried to burn our olive groves and other vegetation.
And these are people who claim to be indigenous, by the way. They burn olive trees. They burn like 1,000-year-old olive trees.
They are not indigenous. Look,
I know, but I'm just saying it's so funny because obviously this is what you do. If you were really from this land, you would burn like trees that are thousands of years old.
We have suffered, this episode, like literally 3 times where they would attempt to come into our property. And from, about 2 years ago, we did what everybody is doing back on the West Bank, is trying to erect fences and make it more difficult, for people to enter into our property and get to their house. So we've built, a perimeter around the property. We have about 8 acres of land where my father built this house, and then another second perimeter and a third perimeter around the house. Literally destroying my father's dream of openness and great views. And, you could, hike, in any direction that you want. So they brought with them a cutter. They've cut our fence, snuck up. They've literally traveled up a hill that is about, 150 meters, and snuck up to the veranda. My sister was quick. She put the shutters down. The house is built out of stone. So they tried to break the glass. They couldn't, partially because of the shutters. There are some other glass that we have done. It doesn't have shutters. There's a large window, call it a picture window. It's bulletproof. So then, they started trying to put in the gasoline they've had from under the doors. And in order for it to go inside, knowing that my sister is there because they saw her when she ran in and closed the shutters. There's patio furniture that's on the veranda that they have lit up. This is our veranda. They came up. That's them. This is the window that I'm telling you about that they tried to break with a rock, and you'll see they'll try 3 times to break it, but they can't. They get frustrated, and then they see my sister in a minute, and you see here he is lighting up. You could see there's something window open there. She literally heard them, got up, and discovered that what they're doing. Then they saw her. Now you see they're going there, trying to break that window and burn her alive. And I look at this and I see, do we deserve this? What have we done to these people? Let's define who they are. They chose not to live in Israel. They came and, they live in confiscated land that's been confiscated from other Palestinians, including my family and my, village. Then they decided to leave those settlements and, create, even under Israeli law, illegal outposts. So the settlements themselves and their existence in the West Bank is illegal under international law. Let's put that aside. These guys came out. They call themselves the Hilltop Youth, and they planted themselves, on hilltops in between Palestinian villages, and their job on a daily basis is to intimidate, bully, harass, and on occasions actually attack, destroy property. And now they're emboldened because of the support they're getting from this right-wing government, this Israeli right-wing government, and the Israeli army. Because, by the way, in the picture here you have 4, but when they descended on our village, there were about 50 plus, and they separated in different directions. And the Israeli army was on the main road, literally watching what they're doing. And in case anybody's going to come, in fact, the Israeli army, when some of the villagers came up the hill to help us, because you'll see from a picture now, the whole house looks on fire. This is the house. So this is taken from our village. You know, it looks as if the entire house is on fire. They come up the hill to help us. The army stops them. You know, this house is located in what is known as Area C within the West Bank. This is an area that is 100% under Israeli occupation. So our protector is the Israeli army and the Israeli police. But they were nowhere, to be seen. In fact, but except that the Israeli army was there and looking and watching and seeing all of this. Protecting the perpetrators of this and trying to make sure that they leave the scene, unharmed. And to me, it's just crazy because we are, this is happening all across, and a lot of Palestinians are suffering and experiencing this on a weekly, if not daily basis. But this hits home. We are an American family. Our government is the main, if not the only, backer, financially and otherwise, of the Israeli government. Taxpayer money is funding the settlement movement and process. The roads that they've built, the infrastructure that there was built to enable these settlements was paid for by, U.S. tax payers, and now they're attacking, American citizens who choose to reside either permanently or, partially in the West Bank. My village is called Deir Dibwan, northeast of Ramallah. It's about 20,000 population. 90% of them are American citizens. Only 5,000 live there, permanently, but the rest, a great number of them, have a second home, and that's their way of, keeping their connection with, their culture.
Right.
But they want to deny us that. And in fact, all of the attacks on our village, which has, started, about 3-4 years ago, early 23, when, when this government came to power, way before, October 7th or the genocide in Gaza, we've experienced these attacks and continue to experience these attacks. And they are, they don't discriminate. They attack anybody, who is living there. And the purpose of these attacks is to, make you feel so miserable and so unsafe that you choose to leave. And if you don't choose to leave, well, then they up the ante and they start doing things a little bit bolder and more dangerous and, more, scary. I mean, we're not gonna sugarcoat it that, we're now, twitching, when it's just before dark, we're looking to see, are they coming? Is it going to happen tonight? Erecting more fences, doing more, taking more measures to protect ourselves.
Right.
But imagine, if any other, American family, imagine that you can't protect yourself in your own property. You're not walking down the street and somebody attacked you. You're not, in a different area and something happened and you got, included. You are in your own home. And these are, they're just coming to send you a message. You need to leave. And it's even more when they know, because we have let everybody know, the IDF, all authorities, that we're an American family. When they know that you're an American family, they get bugged, because they think you're an American family and you could actually, live in the United States and you choose to come here. And they tell us this every time I go on a checkpoint. I whip up my US passport. Are you American? How come you're here? I'm Palestinian, but why you're here?
Right.
Why are you here? I mean, from your accent, you sound like, East European or from Brooklyn, or
Exactly.
Why are you here? How can you be here and not I? So
Right.
this is our family situation right now, and it's just hit so hard and so close to comfort.
Right.
That I wanted to come and share this story with anybody who can hear, and actually send a message to our administration. Are you going to do something about, what these terrorists, who are squatting illegally in the West Bank, confiscating, Palestinian and American Palestinian land. Are you going to do something to protect us? Or are you going to wait until, they actually eventually succeed and they do harm my sister, her husband, me, anybody else who's in the house? Because, really our only remedy is through the Israeli army and police, and they have not delivered because, to them, we're not important. We are an obstacle.
Yeah, I mean, this is, we spoke to the uncle of Saif Mussallet. So here's, I'm just reading a Guardian article. Relatives mourn Palestinian American beaten to death by Israeli settlers. He made everyone feel loved. Saif Mussallet, 20, was an ice cream shop owner in Florida and a beloved member of a tight-knit family with deep ties to the U.S. and Palestine. He was killed. Nothing happened to the people who killed him. In addition to that, his cousin, Mohammed, was kidnapped. And Mohammed was kidnapped and finally released, thanks in large part to the activism of his family, things like what you're doing right now, speaking out about this and trying to get attention to it. But he didn't know until he came out, that his cousin had been killed, for instance. And this is what they do
I'm
to
familiar with the story.
Yeah. And this is what they do to Palestinian Americans. So, like, forget it if you don't have the luxury of having U.S. citizenship, which doesn't protect you. But there's certainly, you have no protection whatsoever if you are not a U.S. citizen. And if you just have the misfortune of, committing the crime of having been born in Palestine. So,
well, to be honest with you, that was the case, in the past. My experience the past 3-4 years, it doesn't make any difference if you are an American. They, for some reason, the memo has been withdrawn from the desk of whomever is in charge of, protecting us on the West Bank. And they told them, okay, include the Palestinian Americans. There's, again, I'm not advocating, look, every Palestinian deserves, the right to be safe, to have dignity, and to be free like any other human being, but we're talking now about, with full knowledge, they know that this town is, an American citizen population, the largest in the West Bank. They know that our family is American, and that doesn't change the needle, not one bit.
Yeah. Well, and I want to ask you, does the law that you practice have anything to do with human rights or any of these issues?
I'm actually, I have nothing to do with human rights. I'm a regular, corporate finance and investment lawyer. I do transactional work. I'm not involved in politics. I'm not involved. The only thing that I do know for a fact is this occupation, is brutal. And, if people are wondering, people, when they talk about, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, they use the words like complicated, it's not easy, there's no hope. There is hope, and it's not complicated. This is a project of land theft, nothing more. Israel exists, and, over 78% of historical Palestine, we're in the 22% that they have now, since Oslo, have taken about 60% of that. And they don't want to leave us alone to live there. Now, there is hope for the future if, the world rejects, Israel's occupation and tells them enough is enough. You have, 3.5 million Palestinians in the West Bank. You have 2.2 million in Gaza. You have 2 million within Israel. You cannot pretend that these peoples don't exist. We just want equal rights. We want to be equal to Israelis. We want to have the ability, to be full citizens of a country that would include everybody, Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Why is it that it's acceptable that a Palestinian is beneath, a settler Israeli, Israeli settler who has just arrived? Why is it okay for an American Jew to have a home in Israel and send his kids, to be in touch with his culture and religion and all of that. And Palestinian Americans can't do the same.
Right.
Why the double standards? Are we not human? Are we not equal? We just want to be equal to them under the law.
Right.
And, to think that sending these thugs, these terrorists into the West Bank and trying to make our life uncomfortable is going to help them achieve their ultimate goal of, transferring us out of our land. Well, it hasn't worked for the past 78 years. It is not going to work. My family is a representative of this. We have the opportunity to live here in the United States and forget and never go and just go on vacation in Italy or Japan or whatever. But we choose to spend part of our free time in our family home, in our land. And we will never stop doing that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's a very inspiring message to share. And we, of course, will continue covering this, and please let us know about anything we can do. And thank you for all that you're doing to raise awareness about this, and please come back.
I appreciate your hosting me and listening to our story, and hopefully this will help. Thank you so much.
And also you should, where are there any representatives in particular that we should be focusing on? Elected officials?
We're speaking to representatives. Our family is split between California and Virginia, Northern Virginia. So we're trying to, go through that route, and hopefully they'll be able to help us. The embassy has been helpful in terms of facilitating our contact with the police, the Israeli police, and putting a complaint. And we're told that 6 were arrested. We're told this is the first time that this happens. We're going to keep pressing, and we're going to make sure that they are held accountable. But we need our representatives, and we need the administration to do more, because everybody that we speak to tells us that, embassy and, just the complaints alone is not going to cut it unless there is a direct message, from President Trump, from Vice President Vance, from Secretary Rubio, and say, look, this is a red line. There are American citizens who, frequent or live in the West Bank, have second homes there, or have or are living there, and those are not, you're not allowed to unleash your thugs, your terrorists, to harass these people. These are Americans. They have full rights. You should afford them the full protection that you would afford to any American, whether that American is Palestinian, Israeli, or, an Italian American who happens to be visiting.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Jawad.
I appreciate it.
Yes, we will be in contact, and let us know if there are any petitions you want us to publicize or actions or anything like that.
I will, Katie. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
Have a great night. And so sorry
You too.
about what you and your family are going through. And note, by the way, what cowards they are. They're cowards.
They are
because,
cowards.
of course, they don't show their
But
faces.
did you see how they're acting? They come in, they're all covered
Yeah,
up. And
exactly. Right. They won't show their faces. And then they like to, we've seen video of them literally, there's one of them who clubbed an old lady.
Oh, yeah.
Really, you really come across as brave,
Well,
macho.
I failed to mention that on the same day that they tried to burn our house, the other party that split from them went down to town and found an old guy. He's an American citizen, 90 years old, in front of a mosque. They sprayed him with and they tried to burn him. He actually ran into the mosque, and people kind of put him, but literally a 90-year-old, they burned about six or seven cars in front of that mosque that is in our neighborhood. Then went down further and found, just cars, people are visiting each other and all of that, and destroyed, another half a dozen of those cars. So.
Oh, and then they kill sheep, and
they
also
steal sheep.
They steal sheep.
They kill sheep.
Yeah. And there's a video of one beating a dog to death. Yeah. Which is just.
The latest movement. This is amusing. Is that these thugs want to adopt. We have obviously we live in a rural area, so we have animal farms, we have agricultural farms. So they raid these farms, the animal farms. They bring a truck. They take their time to put at gunpoint, load these trucks with sheep or cows or whatever, and they take them. And they literally, they're about 2-3 miles from where they stole. herd. The IDF knows about this. The police knows about this. Everybody knows. If you want to get the sheep, because the owner knows where his sheep, they're marked and all of this. Nothing happens. Absolutely nothing. They're just literally, they're allowed to steal, burn, destroy, do whatever they want. They're literally immune, and they're enabled by the IDF.
Right. And here is, by the way, that article that this is the man that you just mentioned.
That's exactly him.
He wanted to burn me alive. 92-year-old recounts West Bank settler attack. Settlers target mosques and homes amid escalating attacks in the occupied West Bank, increasing fear among Palestinians. There he is.
Well, he's showing, because he's an RA, he's showing the fire that's encircling our house.
Right.
This is on the outer perimeter. So, I mean, this is exactly what I'm telling you. What is this? This poor man, what did he do? Nothing. It's just, he is on land that they want to take. And, it's the old story. So when people say it's complicated, it's not complicated.
No.
The Palestinian-Israeli dispute, or conflict can boil down to, they want to steal our land. Full stop. Period.
And we'll kill.
Yes, and we'll kill for that.
Jesus. Wow. Well, it's so infuriating. And again, thank you so much for raising your voice, and we will be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye. It's so infuriating. I mean, I don't even know what there is to say, but it's so infuriating. And the thing that these people have to endure, whether they're Palestinians, Palestinian Americans, and then, we're supposed to be upset about, like, I don't know, someone running for Congress. I think that she was just, videos released about her, about how when October 7th happened, she was really worried about, her biggest fear was that it would tear her family apart. This is a woman in Michigan. She's an American. I mean, I don't know how many kids have to die before that turns into something that she's fearful of. But anyway, very excited to bring on our next guest, the wonderful Samira Mohyeddin, who is an Iranian Canadian journalist and the host of On the Line Media. Welcome back, Samira.
Thanks for having me, Katie.
Of course. I'm sure that was very infuriating for you to listen to, but not surprising.
I just got back from Winnipeg covering the Nakba exhibit that opened there. This is the first national museum in North America to have a Palestinian presence to cover the Nakba. And just listening to Jawad talk, the title of the exhibit is Nakba Past and Present, and it's ongoing. It's not something that just happened in 1948. It continues.
Right. Yeah, it does. So there's so much to talk about with you. We're going to talk about some accusations against you, which I'm very excited to talk about with you. But we're going to save that for the end, because that's like the popcorn. And actually it deals with very important issues. But let's talk about the stuff that's not as personal first. So although these things are very personal, because of course you're Iranian yourself. What are your thoughts on the latest developments around Iran, whether that's like in war news, in diplomacy news, or in football or soccer news?
Sometimes it's all linked together.
Right.
Iran was just, they didn't make it to the round of 32, although I believe they should have. We were totally robbed in 3 separate instances. And basically, to me, those players were treated like prisoners, taken off a bus, on a bus, made to leave right after the game. They weren't even allowed to stay there. They would have to go back to Tijuana.
Right.
And one of the most egregious things that happened, and I don't know if you remember this. So one of the players, Mohamed Mohebi, when he scored, did this like shooting thing, and everybody was up in arms about this, like all of this sort of corporate media saying, crap like the Daily Mail, and people in the Iranian diaspora who tie these players to the government in Iran, saying, oh my God, he was shooting at the crowd. IRGC is as IRGC does. Meanwhile, this is a movement, that shooting is something that all football players do.
Right.
But because he's Iranian, it takes on a whole different connotation.
Right.
It's just, it's disgusting watching FIFA kowtow to Trump, the same people who gave him the Peace Prize.
Right. Yeah.
the FIFA Peace Prize.
So disgusting. Yeah, we covered this. Was it last week? Yeah, it was last week we talked about this. And there's an attempt to boycott it also because of this. And the fact that they're playing as well as they played when they had all these extra challenges. I mean, having to travel, like not being able to sleep in the United States.
They were supposed to stay in Arizona. They got the go ahead, and then all of a sudden Trump was like, well, you can't stay here. We're not hosting you. And the fact that FIFA even allows this was the first time this ever happened. And who knows what sort of precedent this is going to set.
Right.
Maybe some other country, the next time it's somewhere, says, you know what, I don't want to host so-and-so. Could we say we don't want to host Israel? Israel has to, if Israel ever gets into the World Cup, they never get in.
Right.
But would that be allowed? I don't think so.
Wow.
And Samira, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but would you mind, to avoid some plosives, maybe the microphone here? Just
Yes, I'm allowed
positioning
to.
it like right
You bet.
there.
I'll move over.
Right.
How's that?
Just so that the air is not going right into the mic.
How's
Thank
that?
Perfect. Sound good, Brad? Do you want her to say
Well,
potato
we-
or something?
God bless Brad. Papa caught a pedal.
Yeah, like when you go like that, it's there. But if you talk straight, I didn't hear anything. You're
Great.
good to go.
I'll keep it
Thank
here.
Yeah. Talk straight. Okay. Bye. Thanks. Problematic, Brad. Problematic. Yeah.
I didn't mean it that. Okay, whatever.
Yeah. We actually, there's a video that we can show of the Iran team's captain, Mehdi Taremi.
Yes.
Taremi, how do you say
Yeah,
it?
Taremi, yeah.
Taremi, during a press conference a few days ago, and he's venting some of his frustration. So let's take a look at this.
Tonight? Yeah, we have to beg. We always complain about these things since the beginning. It's a disaster World Cup. A disaster. Point of charge of FIFA. They have to solve every problem here, but unfortunately they couldn't solve since the beginning. Mr. Infantino came to our changing room first game and he said it's just the beginning, but it's group stage finish tomorrow. And we don't have our logistic people here. They don't have a visa. How possible we always have to travel to Tijuana? We love people of the Mexico.
I love that he says Tijuana.
I know.
It's so good. They are so humble people. We love them. But as a professional players, professional competition, it's not right. Yeah? It's about our opinion, because now we have traveled again going to Tijuana again. So without recovery, without nothing, it's not fair. But by our opinion, it's not fair. If is it fair?
I also love that he's so polite. He's like, we love Mexico. We're not complaining about having to go to Tijuana.
And he says Tijuana.
Tijuana. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, he can't speak English very well, but he says Tijuana.
Yeah.
Taremi and all the other players, I mean, this idea that they are tied to the government or referring to them in this way is I just think it's brutal, you know.
Yeah.
And this is just, they get swept up in this stuff because it's Iran. I mean,
Also, what are you saying? I mean, it's kind of a self-own for Trump to be like, these guys are so scary, like we can't allow them in the country, but Mexico can get, I mean, it's just so, what is he even saying?
Yeah. And then Scheinbaum right away, she was like, we'll take them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, she's great. So Samira, tell us more about this exhibit that you attended, which is so relevant. And the exhibit is so important, but it's almost just as noteworthy is the fact that it's been so controversial. I mean, the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, as it's called, as you said, they opened this Nakba exhibit up. Tell us the backstory about this, and then tell us about the exhibit, because you actually were able to attend it earlier, right?
Yeah.
Then it was officially opened. So tell us about how this came about. Tell us about what you saw when you were there.
So I'll give you a background to the museum itself. So. Right. This is a museum that was born out of an idea that Izzy Asper had. Izzy Asper is a very well-known Canadian Zionist. The Asper family owns a lot of newspapers, media company, and they are the ones who built this museum. And there is a permanent Holocaust exhibit on the 4th floor. It takes up the entire floor. And in 2014, it was built, the museum. And this museum has not been without controversy before. I mean, it's built on unceded territory, indigenous lands. The museum was taking water from Shoal Lake, a place where indigenous people don't have clean drinking water. So there was a lot of stuff going on, and then there was a lot of controversies during the Black Lives Matter movement. They had people resigning. There was a lot of stuff going on. Even when they wanted to do an indigenous exhibit, they told them not to use the word genocide. So there was a lot of controversy. Now, Izzy Asper has passed. Gail Asper, his daughter, said to the Canadian Jewish News a couple weeks ago, she gave an interview. She said, "This is our museum and we will do what we like." However, this museum is a crown corporation. They receive money from the Canadian government. So the Canadian government is sort of involved in this. And this exhibit, the Nakba exhibit, was really, the idea of it was pushed for back in 2014 when the museum was first built. However, it really came to life in the past 4 years under a new director, Aisha Khan. And I had an interview with her. I put that up on my channel today. But she has really spearheaded this. And despite, I'm talking the most contrived, concerted campaign to try and stop this exhibit, she has stood firm and said, no, Palestinian Canadians are a part of the Canadian mosaic and their story will be told. Now, I was at the museum 2 days before the official opening. So I got a tour of the museum. I went to every exhibit. So there was the Ukrainian Holodomor is there, the Chinese head tax that we used to have here on Canada, the Japanese internment that happened in Canada, the Srebrenica massacre, the Rwandan genocide, the Armenian genocide. Like, every community is represented in this museum. The Nakba exhibit is 12 meters long. It's smaller than my condo living room. It is just 2 panels, a set of keys, a deed to land, and a wax paper wrapping for Jaffa oranges, which is something that a Palestinian grandmother kept when she was displaced from Jaffa.
Wow. This is 40 feet, by the way. 40 feet is 12 meters. It's like 40 feet.
12 meters, yeah. This is probably the tamest exhibit you could think of creating for the Nakba.
Right.
And yet it is called divisive, hateful. Today, there was an article in the National Post by Adam Katz. This is a third-year undergrad student getting an article in a major paper saying that this exhibit is Jew hate. That's the word he used, Jew hate. So don't listen to Palestinians. Listen to third-year undergrad student Adam Katz about what this exhibit is. And there were people actually protesting outside of this exhibit on the day that it opened.
And we actually have video of you interacting with some of these protesters, right?
Yeah, because I wanted to know what is going on in their heads. You know what? Because they are actually saying that this is about Jewish erasure.
I mean, if they wanted Jews to be included in it, I don't think it would be a good look for them to show. But why not? Sure, show the Jewish participation in the Nakba. I mean, they could screen the Tantura. They could screen Tantura, where all these soldiers admit that that they killed and raped people. Maybe they'd feel less erased.
I remember the flamethrower too. The guy saying we used the flamethrower.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And these are like the words of the people who did it. That's listen to Jewish voices, right? That's what they want. They want inclusion. Yeah, I think they should do that. They should literally just project those voices. But let's take a look at some of your interactions.
Information
Yes.
to creating yourself as an educated person. So as a high school teacher.
So you're a high school teacher. I have a master's in modern Middle Eastern history, and you're putting this in quotations.
No. What
do you teach?
You don't identify yourself.
What do you teach?
What do you teach?
In high school.
What do you teach in high school?
I don't teach in high school.
Well,
you
I
just
do.
told me you're a teacher.
Human rights.
You teach high school human rights?
Yes.
Wait, stop this.
The
for a
fact that you're
Context
standing
to the
here
Rwanda.
denying.
Brad. So
I have
Brad,
to
I
tell-
guess she's gonna go, Samira. Like, I guess go like this whenever you want to pause it because we can't control it. Yeah.
I have to tell you that this guy, he told me he's a human rights teacher. I found him.
So crazy.
He's a teacher at Sturgeon Collegiate, and he teaches auto mechanics.
So close. I mean, I myself,
So
haven't you
close.
gotten confused? You're like, I have to go bring
like,
my car into the
carburetor?
Human Rights clinic. I mean, yeah, to get it
Yeah.
fixed. Yeah.
Carburetor, Article 5. Yeah. But yeah, go ahead.
Wow.
You can play
I
the
do
rest
not
of
think he expected that to happen, that you would find out that he was actually not a human rights teacher, but not even a history teacher, not like a government teacher, not anything remotely.
it. Auto
but-
mechanic.
oh, wow. Okay, great. Okay, let's keep going.
School.
Well,
You
I
just
do.
told me you're a teacher.
Human rights.
You teach high school human rights?
Yes.
The
So in
fact that you're
context to
standing
the
here
Rwanda-
denying the human rights of
Absolutely not.
Palestinians?
No.
What's the context?
The context is that there is a balance and there is a story and there is a side.
Balance.
Yes.
If I came to you and said the Germans should have a role in how the Holocaust is memorialized, what would you say?
I would.
Because these are people. So what? This man, I think, is Israeli, right?
Yes, he is. Yeah,
Okay.
he moved to Canada in 1987.
Okay. And so he's saying that the Jewish community should have been consulted. Like, is there a particular organization he wanted to
So
have been
this is
consulted?
so this is the thing. The independent Jewish voices and other groups were consulted. They were
And
part of-
independent Jewish voices is kind of like our Jewish voice for peace.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. They were consulted, and other groups were also consulted. He is saying that this is what the context that they want, that they say is missing, that this happened during a war, that the Arabs attacked Israel. That's what they're saying. And
Okay.
because of that, there was a Nakba. Now, obviously, none of these people have any historical understanding. The Nakba did not happen on one day.
Right.
That was the culmination of it. The planning for the Nakba, as you and I both know, happened long before 1948. There were more than 200 terrorist activities happening, bombs blown up, bridges blown up, British soldiers hanged, all of this happening prior to the Nakba. And villages and wells were poisoned. I mean, Plan Dalit was before the actual date of the Nakba. The Deir Yassin massacre happened before May 15th.
Right.
All of this stuff. But none of these people know that. They just know. And it's, you know what, Katie? I have a background in genocide studies. So there is nothing different here than the things that the Turks say. And right now, if a lot of people may not know this, but in Rwanda, the Herero, and this is the rest of the clip, you'll see, the Herero also say, before we massacred the Tutsis, they
Right.
massacred us.
Right.
So it's the classic both sides.
Yeah.
Right?
Denial. Yeah.
Like, would we ever say to the Germans, hey guys, what did the Jews do to you
Right,
to make
before,
you do this
yeah.
to them? Let's put that in the museum.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Good question. Okay. So let's, B. Graggle. I'm taking my car in to get the tires rotated and present some prima facie evidence. Nice. All right. Let's go back to the video.
There is a balanced story for everything. So now, as a journalist, yes, you said you're a journalist. Now you said you're an academic. So which
I'm
hat are you
both.
wearing? You can't be both.
I can wear.
Oh, I didn't know this, by the way. Breaking news. So this guy is a human rights expert, auto mechanics expert, and like a career coach or something. Apparently,
Yes.
you can't be an academic and a journalist. I mean,
No.
there are journalists who are literally professors of journalism, but you can also be professors of other things and a journalist. So just so he knows, okay.
All
can't be
hats.
both. Okay.
Of course
So
I
this
can.
is why I
Of course I
we
can.
dismiss
You
all
can't.
your-
You can't take my hat.
He literally says this is why we dismiss.
This is
Like-
why I dismiss you.
Right, because he said like that, right? Like you were an
Yeah, he said you're an you're an educated person.
right because you have a master's, right?
Yeah, in
And-
modern Middle Eastern history. yeah.
Okay, so you have a master's in Middle Eastern history, and you are also a journalist, and you used to work at the CBC. Like, so
Yes.
it's not really up for debate. Okay.
Hat off.
Well,
Why are you trying to do
so
that?
in the context of the Rwanda massacre, do you
Yes.
know what happened prior to the Rwanda massacre?
Of course I do.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm sure you're gonna get really embarrassed, right, Samira? Like, you don't know what you're talking about. This guy's gonna lecture you,
This
right?
was his big gotcha moment.
Yeah,
Right.
he had a couple.
What happened?
In 1990, there were messages by the leader of the Hutus that the Tutsis are cockroach, that the Tutsis are vermin. And then we had the president's helicopter shot down.
Side massacre prior to that?
The other side of the Rwandan message. This is amazing.
What do you know about the Belgian
I know that the Belgians colonized it. I know the Belgians told the Tutsis that they're more European and that they should have more rights.
Do you like the Rhodes Scholar?
He's like, next talking point. Okay, this is my favorite, actually, out of all of them. I think is my favorite one. Okay.
The money that gives every year.
Rhodes Scholar? Yeah, what about it?
Do you know what the Rhodes?
Of course I do.
Would you like it?
Would I like a Rhodes Scholarship?
Yes.
Sure, why not?
After what Cecil Rhodes did in Central Africa, you would accept the Rhodes Scholar?
This is such a beautiful inversion of why you're actually here and what you're doing.
This is why you're phony. And you see, I can go on with
You're talking to me about Cecil B. Rhodes?
Because
you teach human rights in high school?
I do.
You do?
I do.
I feel very sorry for your students.
And I feel sorry for you.
Good.
First of all, I mean, I do feel sorry for students because now they're all going to know that their teacher is like a liar who cosplays as the human rights teacher.
Yeah, auto mechanics teacher.
Yes. Wait, but that, like, honestly, it is so pathetic that he thought, like, it was really satisfying because you know so much more than he does. Now, I should also say that you don't have to have an academic background or be a journalist to see that it is more than acceptable and consistent with human rights values and a commitment to human rights to have an exhibit about the Nakba. But it just happens to be extra satisfying that he keeps trying to like talk down to you and you hand him his ass and he's left with, would you accept a Rhodes Scholarship? Yes. What about Cecil B. Rhodes?
Like that was his big, you know, the feather, like that was his
he saved
big
his
thing.
coup. Yeah.
But I was like, wow, he went from Rwanda to Cecil B. Rhodes and then said, that's why I'm a phony. If I would take a Rhodes Scholarship.
It's so crazy. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
It's so
unreal.
Desperate.
Yeah, it really is desperate.
It shows the level of desperation. And I have to point this out. Everyone that was there protesting was a pensioner. There was no one there under the age of 60, 65. Wow. Nobody, not one.
We say retired, I think, right? That's what we say in the States for pensioner, right?
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. But I guess it's encouraging, right? It's like that it's the next younger people. I mean, you know, it's nice to know that the kids are all right, as they say. And of course, there are great older people who have great politics on this too. But
yeah, I mean, they were inside. There were, I should point this out too. I mean, they were probably about 50 people outside. Inside was 750. And they had a waiting list of 750 people.
Wow.
Like the demand to see this exhibit is huge.
Oh, great.
And the number of Jewish people inside the exhibit was massive.
Great.
So this idea that Jews feel threatened by this exhibit and all of that, this is all just manufactured controversy. What breaks my heart is that our corporate media here in Canada just regurgitates this. They keep calling it the controversial exhibit.
Right.
It's not controversial. Or they keep saying it's a contested history.
Right. Yes. Well, and in fact, it's not just the corporate media, right? Because you also have politicians and ministers.
Oh, yeah. Our Heritage Minister.
Yeah. So tell us about that. So we have this Jerusalem Post headline, which let's see. I think Brad, we have that, right? Okay. So here is the Jerusalem Post says, not calling Hamas terrorists in Nakba exhibit was error, quote unquote, says Canada's Heritage Minister. Canadian Heritage Minister Marc Miller stated that not identifying Hamas as a terrorist organization is a failure and called for the alleged error in curation to be rectified. Tell us about this person. Tell us
Marc
about
Miller.
Marc Miller, yes, and what else he
Marc
tell us
Miller's
more about him and your interaction with him, actually.
Yeah, Marc Miller's portfolio used to be Indigenous affairs, so it makes sense that he would now try and deny the Nakba also.
Right.
But what is really disgusting is that a week and a half ago, Marc Miller stood up in the House of Commons when he was asked about the Nakba exhibit, and he said, "It's not my place to tell a museum what to curate and what not to curate."
Right.
So what happened in the past week for
his job
Marc
description
Miller.
changed.
Yeah, for
somehow.
Marc Miller to do an about face. Now imagine, I have to tell you this, as I said, it's 12 meters, 40 feet in length. Hamas is not mentioned because Hamas has nothing to do with the Nakba.
I thought they were there in 1948.
They've always been there. They
Yeah.
were there from 3,000 years ago.
Stupid.
But the fact that he says this, I mean, these are all talking points that organizations like the Center for Israel Jewish Affairs, they're kind of like our version of AIPAC.
Right.
They're called CIJA. They have been going so hard at this for the past 6 months, calling this thing up, saying it's Jew hate and all this stuff. And, Marc Miller is such a, these ministers know nothing about this history. That's why I think it's so dangerous to have people like this, the confident dumb, I call all these people, because they will just opine on things that they know nothing about and feel so confident. How could you say you must include Hamas in a 1948 Nakba exhibit?
So it's not that they referred to Hamas and didn't call them terrorists. There was no Hamas mentioned because Hamas wasn't founded at the time of the Nakba, but they're so used to, I guess, weaponizing October 7th to explain everything, right? There's no history before then, that somehow October 7th and Hamas can time travel to be relevant to 1948.
Yeah. Let's go back in time. I mean, the point of it also is whenever you mention Hamas, it's basically saying that all Palestinians are Hamas.
That too, right? Yeah.
Remember, these are just stories of Palestinian Canadian families. This exhibit doesn't even get into things like the Deir Yassin massacre.
Right.
It doesn't even talk about the poisoning of wells. It doesn't talk about the decimation and Hebrewisation of 532 villages, the changing of names and all of that. It is simply about displacement and dispossession in 1948. And
not about killing and rape, for instance. Right.
None of that. Yeah. None of it is present. You don't even see the word Jewish, and yet they will say it's about Jew hate. It's so mind-boggling how fucking pathetic this whole controversy is. And the museum is under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
To include this Hamas bit. So that's really what I'm going to be watching out for. Of course, Marc Miller has to say this, and we don't know if he even really believes it. I don't know who advises these people.
Right.
But it also, this type of rhetoric from a minister also erases the Jewish people who were actually involved in putting together this exhibit, who were part of the advisory. It does away with other Jewish voices, right? Which are marginalized also. But every time Palestinians find somewhere to tell their story, people will organize to shut them down. That's all this is, just plain and simple. That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, we actually have you a video of yourself having an interaction with Marc.
Oh, yeah.
So do you want to set this up where this was?
Yeah, so this is at the Fairmont Hotel in Winnipeg. On the morning of the opening of the Nakba exhibit, I saw Marc Miller having breakfast with two men, who I'm still trying to place, by the way, and his aide. And he made a beeline for my table right after he finished breakfast. Like all of the other guys went off and he just came right up to my table. I was all alone having breakfast and he said, "Hello, I'm Marc Miller." Really weird, like totally strange. There was no reason for him to do that. And I said, "I know who you are."
Yeah, that's nice.
And I said, what are you doing here? Are you going to the Nakba exhibit? And he just looked at me like blank faced, didn't say anything. And I asked him again, I said, "Are you here for the Nakba exhibit?" And he said, "Oh, I'm just here for some regional and territorial meetings, but I'm going to the private event." There was like a private dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was it. But why are you coming up to my table? Like, what was that?
That is weird.
Very weird. Very
Maybe
odd.
he's a fan.
Yeah. No, I doubt that very much. But, it was very strange. And the fact that he, really acquiesced finally to the pressures from these Zionist organizations in Canada is just so disappointing.
Right. That it really is. Yeah.
it's very disappointing. You know, I interviewed the two people who were telling their familial stories.
Wow.
One of them, her name is Rana Abdullah. She was born in Palestine, lived in Kuwait, and then immigrated to Canada. The other gentleman, his name was Fawad Seyhoun, and he is from a very prominent family in Haifa. They actually have a couple streets named after them in Haifa, Seyhoun. He owned massive amounts of property. They were all taken from him and his family. And he has the deeds to his property in the exhibit. And Rana Abdullah has the keys to her family home. And it's this like big brass, key. And this is going to blow your mind. As I'm talking to Rana Abdullah after I interviewed her, she just in passing says to me, the Mossad assassinated my uncle in 1972. And I was like, what? And she named him Mahmoud Hamshari. And I was like, what? And she said, look him up. So when I got home, I looked up Mahmoud Hamshari. And sure enough, the Mossad assassinated him in Paris in 1972. And how did they do it, Katie? You're not going to believe this.
How?
They did it by a Mossad agent pretending to be an Italian journalist asked Mahmoud Hamshari for an interview over the phone. When Mahmoud picked up his phone, a bomb went off.
Wow.
1972. Mahmoud Hamshari was the spokesperson for the PLO.
It's terrorism.
It's terrorism.
Yeah.
But the fact that this Canadian woman,
of course, right.
we don't know her. The world doesn't know her.
Incredible, though, yeah.
But look at this story that she has, that she carries around in her heart of her uncle being assassinated by the Mossad. Of course, there was no accountability for anybody, they just kill him, whatever. And she's getting flack because she put a set of keys in a little exhibit in the corner of a museum.
We actually have, Brad, I just sent you a video of Samira. And also, I think Nate just sent you an article.
Did you want to show the video of the interaction that?
Oh, yeah. Okay. We'll do the Mark one. Then we're going to do the video that I just sent you, which is Samira at the exhibit. But first, I think Nate just sent you. Did you get this from Nate? Nate, did you send it to Brad about Mahmoud?
Oh, Mahmoud Hamshari, yeah.
This is Ron Abdullah's uncle, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll play the Mark, and you get the other ones ready.
The Marc Miller is just me showing him there. It's not him.
It's nothing. Okay. Just proof of that he's there. All right.
There's our Marc Miller.
There's our Marc Miller, beloved Mark, who came so close to taking the right position.
So close.
Okay. There's Mark. Now we happen to have a photo. This is pretty fascinating of the killed PLO representative.
And is that the article?
Yes, the article. Yeah, this is just very interesting. And then we have a video that I want to show of you giving an explanation. Okay.
There she is.
Right? I knew a hero once, Uncle Mahmoud, in my memory, 40 years on. So he was killed.
Yeah, I guess Rana wrote that about her uncle? Yeah. Yeah. And
a Palestine Chronicle, friend of show, Ramzi Baroud's great website. And we're having him on Friday as well as Dennis Kucinich, the great Ramzi Baroud. Yeah.
On his gravestone, it says the something Mahmoud, the man of the lost home. Wow.
Was this when they were doing all those things like the post Munich stuff?
Yes, they were killing everybody.
All those terrorists, attacks. Yeah, so disgusting. I just want to take a look at the exhibit because you posted a great a great video of yourself at the exhibit. I texted to you, right, Brad?
Here at the beginning of the Nakba exhibit at the Canadian Museum for you can see how Human Rights. As you can see here,
this is the whole
thing. Starts off with a photo of Gaza, people being displaced from their homes. The exhibit full name is Nakba Past and Present. So it really looks at the past as a prologue of what is happening today to the Palestinian people. If we walk over here, you'll see that it also notes of the fact that Palestinians have been living under occupation for decades. And it does so here as you sort of pass more along. You'll see Palestinian weaving known as tatriz. And as we move further along, just here past the tatriz. So yeah, there's this panel here that changes. You know, you can see tents from Gaza, stuff like that. Then it moves here. There's this panel. It talks about displacement and dispossession, continuous, and life under occupation. And I think that's one of the word that really bothers them. They want that taken out.
Right.
For decades, Palestinians have lived under Israeli military occupation.
Right, they like conflict, right? That's one of their preferred words. Yeah.
Yes, conflict. Yeah.
Wow.
And it notes the fact that even though they withdrew the military in Gaza in 2005, and here are the other stuff. Artwork that bears witness to the military occupation, the keffiyeh that is now one of the items that is constantly vilified, a piece of cloth that is part of Palestinian culture that many pro-Israeli groups and Zionists in Canada see as a symbol of hate and something that makes them feel uncomfortable when they see it. One of the other items here that you'll see is a fruit wrapping papers. Very interesting here. And it really symbolizes that the citrus orchards in the depopulated village of Wadi Hunain, a lot of the orange orchards were taken over by the Zionists. You might see some of them in your grocery store. Just last week, Farm Boy was selling mandarins from the occupied West Bank, but of course it puts the name Israel. This entire exhibit is only 12 meters in length, and yet there has been so much brouhaha created by Zionist groups here in Canada that somehow this exhibit is divisive, that somehow it is controversial.
All the Jew hate in there, right? I mean, if you don't see it, it's there. If I have to explain to you where it is, it means you don't get it. I mean, what on earth is the Jew hate there? Like, what is it? And in fact, every time someone says something like that, they're perpetuating Jew hate because they're making it seem like it's inherently anti-Semitic to highlight the Nakba, which suggests that all Jews were involved in the Nakba and we all are on the side of Israel.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's what they repeat, right? Yeah. It's the percentage. They say that. So even though independent Jewish voices, UJPO, which is the United Jewish People's Order here in Canada, they just celebrated their 100th anniversary.
Right.
It's called the Winchevsky. They are one of the oldest organizations here in Canada, but they're constantly sidelined. They have their own camps and all that. They have their own schools, the Winchevsky School, but nobody talks to them, right? They're not real Jews. Right. The real Jews are, Sija and B'nai B'rith and all these other people who are railing against. They are the ones that the corporate media will put in their articles. They are the ones that they speak to. And, people like Jesse Brown will say, well, 90% of Jews in Canada, actually, I think it's 97% is the number that he gives. 97% of Jews in Canada all think that the state of Israel is, their guiding light and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So they're not anti-Zionists, right?
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate thing is that, as you said, I mean, this is what perpetuates anti-Semitism.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would just want to show, though, a very scary thing, because it's not as if this Jew hate isn't bad enough. Sija is warning us that ahead of the opening of the controversial Nakba, they put in quotes, exhibit, we're concerned by reports that the Canadian Museum for Human Rights plans to develop and distribute educational materials related to the controversial exhibit, which can have real serious which can have serious real-world consequences. Materials that are one-sided and driven by a political agenda can contribute to discrimination, bullying, and even assault targeting Jewish students. The federal government must hold the CMHR's leadership accountable for this egregious mishandling. And they've released, and luckily they have an action hub. This is such a great look, guys. Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable. So you mentioned Jesse Brown. Is there anything you want to say, by the way, about honest reporting?
Oh, honest reporting. Some
we
very
yeah.
good news about honest reporting, who I think is also in the United States, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah. And they basically are like a censorship org that pretends to be
they're an
a watchdog.
Israeli media mouthpiece, but pretends to be a media watchdog for fairness.
Right.
Last October, I noticed something very strange in their emails, that there was this sister group that they had created called Honest Reporting Charitable Organization, which didn't exist before. Now I realized why, and that's because the Canada Revenue Agency has pushed and moved to revoke their charitable status here in Canada, saying that nothing they do is actually charitable.
Right.
And they wanted to fine them $360,000 something dollars, but they did away with that. Now, Honest Reporting is trying to fight that revocation in court. This is the same Honest Reporting that last year I outed their assistant director was charged with 17 counts of mischief because he was spray painting 17 times in a Toronto neighborhood, "Fuck Gaza." I was the first person to put this out, and then all of the corporate media here followed suit. Toronto Star and the others. It was actually in the Times of Israel too. They covered it, that the assistant director was charged with 17 counts of mischief. So what's scary is that Honest Reporting, even though their executive assistant was charged with 17 counts of mischief, spray painting anti-Palestinian racism all over a Toronto neighborhood, would still be invited to parliamentary committees to come and testify about the media landscape in Canada. I mean, what do these organizations have to do to be sidelined and marginalized? What do they have to do?
Or like dismissed as
can
like
they
moral,
commit murder?
Right.
Like, what will it take? Or can they be like Trump? Can they just walk down Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and still be okay? I mean, that's what it feels like. There's no accountability.
But just so people understand, this is an organization that speaks out against what they consider to be like anti-Semitic, hateful, incorrect, ignorant speech. And someone high up in their organization spray paints multiple times, "Fuck Gaza," and that doesn't have a major impact on how they are viewed.
No, it has not had any impact at all on how they are viewed. They still, launch their campaigns. They are still invited to Parliament Hill in Ottawa, in our capital, to give testimony, to give deputations. It's had no impact at all. And it's pretty wild, The thing that will have impact, though, is the fact that they will have their charitable status revoked. I hope that the Canada Revenue Agency goes through this. What's really, really fucked up, Katie, is that this organization is funded by some of the largest law firms in Canada, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow. Oh my. Okay. Well, but you made this discovery about their tax status, and I believe now there's finally going to be some attention paid to this.
They're fighting this right now in court. Wow. So, but the thing is, I don't think it'll make. I don't know, like they may have their charitable status revoked, but I think those people who are such diehards will continue to donate to them, right?
Wow.
Yeah. But you could see it. I mean, the "Fuck Gaza" spray painting is all over. And he put it, they put it all over bus terminals.
Right.
It was a stencil. And Katie, the stencil was in Yiddish. It was Yiddish.
Oh my God.
You know, the Yiddish sort of stenciling?
Yeah.
That's how they wrote it. That's him, Robert Walker. There it is. You see it?
He looks like a really wholesome, nice guy. I shouldn't say that, but yeah. Wow. Oh yeah, there it is. I see. You're saying they did it in like a Yiddishy font.
Yes, the
like
font.
Yeah.
It was a Yiddish font stencil.
Oh my God. Wow. or Hebrew, right? It's the
I
same
guess,
alphabet.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
we don't want to taint Yiddish. Yeah, let's keep it take Yiddish out of their mouths.
Take the Yiddish out.
You know, they made it. You had to pay a tax, right, to like read Yiddish newspapers.
Oh, I
and
didn't know
they
that.
really discouraged Yiddish, yeah, because it was the old country. You know, it was like the
Yes.
the bad Jews, the Jews
Bad
that
Jews.
the founders of Israel wanted to be the opposite of. That's a whole other discussion, which is why it's so ironic when Jews like me get called self-loathing. Because if you actually read the things that lots of Zionists said, they talked about how disgusting Jews were. I mean, it's unreal. But all right, so let's turn to this Jesse Brown thing. So
Especially the survivors of the Holocaust.
yeah,
Just
Oh.
again, another conversation.
right, who they call soaps.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you have that famous quote where Ben Gurion said if he had to choose between saving twice as many Jewish children by sending them to
Britain.
England and half as many by sending them to Palestine, he would choose Palestine. Yeah, that's how much the Zionists care about saving Jewish lives.
Yeah.
Okay, so shifting gears a little bit to Jesse Brown. You came on my show, you and Jesse were tweeting back and forth. You were very disturbed by a clip of him where he was talking
On CNN, yeah.
on CNN, yeah. And in fact, we have that clip. Let's show the clip of Jesse on CNN. Then what happened is Jesse got upset by our discussion. I joked on our discussion. I said, Jesse, come on. I said something like, Jesse, come on the show. Maybe if you have a Jew who has your back, you'll feel safe, which I thought was clearly a joke because I wasn't going to have his back because I'm a Jew who disagrees with him. I then said that he could debate Daniel Maté. They did that, but it wasn't a debate. So Daniel has released it, and Jesse has accused me of like burying it and censoring my own podcast. But I gave him the file, so that doesn't really work. And Daniel also released it, so it's not buried. Now, the one thing that hasn't been released, but we're releasing it now, is his response to you. But before we do that, I think it makes sense, right, to show the clip that you were responding to in the first place.
Sure.
And then, okay, so here's the clip that you were responding to in the first place, Jesse on CNN.
You touched on something that I think I would love for you to expand on, this idea that, you sort of feel it's particularly acute in Canada, especially. Talk to us about the dynamics at play that make Canada ripe for something like this.
Thank you for that question. I think it's surprising to a lot of people because Canada is associated with politeness and kindness, and these are the values that I think every Canadian values, holds very dear. Is that we're a pluralistic, multicultural society where people generally have lived harmoniously together. So it is surprising to see that Canada become one of the worst countries in the world when it comes to this post-October 7th spike in anti-Jewish hate. There are many factors. I think that you can't ignore the fact that we have tripled our Muslim population in just about 20 years. By and large, Muslims have lived in Canada just as Jews, harmoniously and without incident, up until this post-October 7th
Without
era.
incident.
The fact of the matter is, and it's an uncomfortable topic for some, we are bringing in people from countries where hatred of Jews is taught in schools. And unlike other countries, there's very little done when people come to Canada to educate and naturalize them to say, this is not how we do things here.
Okay. So that was what you were responding to in your Twitter back and forth with him and then on my show. And people will link to that so people can see it. Now, here's what Jesse said in what was supposed to be a debate between Daniel and Jesse, and it wasn't. It was much more of a discussion. And so it was very much a discussion between like two people who know each other. So it didn't feel like a good fit for my channel. But here it is, because I don't want to be accused of burying anything. Jesse has obviously clipped pieces of this because I buried it so much that I sent him the clips. So he's tweeted this out, but I want to give, he really wants my viewers to see his rebuttal of your points. So here it is. And then as we go along, you can just go like that and we'll pause it. Okay? Okay.
Our ideological divergences are pretty well known to anyone who follows both of us. I do have a question I could ask you, Jesse, sort of as a jumping off point. We had that clip from the conference you were recently at that we could play as a jumping off point, but I'm open to whatever.
And again, just so people know, this is Daniel Maté of Bad Hasbara, friend of the show. I've been on Bad Hasbara. Daniel's been on this show. I obviously co-host a show with his brother, Aaron. I've interviewed their father, Gabor. he and Matt, his co-host of Beth Hasbara, were making fun of Jesse, and Matt joked about having Jesse on. Then Jesse said he would do it, and then Jesse felt like Matt was implying that Jesse was too much of a coward to come on. So then he said, no, Jesse's not too much of a coward. He would totally debate me or something. Okay. So this is why you're seeing Daniel Maté and Jesse, and they both went to McGill in Canada, and they knew each other. And also, yeah, that's it. And people say this would have been good. Well, it's on Daniel's channel. That's great. So
yeah, go see it there.
Yeah, we'll link to it. Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
I think our ideological divergences are pretty well known to anyone who follows both of us. I do have a question I could ask you, Jesse, sort of as a jumping off point. We had that clip from the conference you were recently at that we could play as a jumping off point, but I'm open to whatever.
Thank you for having me on, Katie, and thank you to Dan. If I can ask you, Dan, to hold your question for a minute.
Sure, of course.
Before we get into whatever you have planned, I just look. I think it's clear that I disagree with both of you about a lot of things, and probably most of the people watching who are subscribed to this channel I disagree with on a lot of issues. And I didn't come here with the intention of persuading anybody. I'd be surprised if that were to happen. The reason why I accepted your invitation is because, like, the fact that I disagree with your audience, like, it doesn't mean that your audience deserves to be lied to. Your audience deserves to have good information. And I wasn't familiar with your show. I became familiar with it when I saw a recent episode where you had Samira Mohyeddin on, and your audience received a lot of very wrong, factually wrong information, and it's serious information. And what I'm asking for is just like a few minutes to correct like the three biggest demonstrable lies that were told, and then we can get into whatever conversation you want. Is that all right if I take? I won't go on forever.
Yeah,
it's fine with me. It's with the caveat that Samira is not here,
right?
And Katie's playing the role of moderator. So if you're okay with me being the one to respond to however you present the fact check.
Yeah, I would have been happy to have been on that, and I'd be happy to speak to Samira. But this is
he said she would love to go on your show, so maybe.
Yeah, this is
so. There's a chance you guys could have a debate on Jesse's show, right?
Yeah,
on Canadaland. Okay.
It's not really about a contest of ideas. This is about and I'll send you the link to the substantiation for this. And I'll try to be brief here. The first thing I want to correct is Samira was talking about the surge in anti-Semitism in Canada since October 7th, which is what I've been covering for the past few years. She was making the argument that it's exaggerated and that it pales in comparison to Islamophobia, and that's her opinion, and she can argue that. But what she said was that this was largely about Jews getting uncomfortable when they see a keffiyeh on campus, and to make a direct quote, she said, "No one is getting hurt." That is a lie. A Jewish grandmother was stabbed in a kosher supermarket in Ottawa by an anti-Semitic zealot. A Jewish kid who's 11 years old was swarmed by her classmates in a public school who yelled "Free Palestine," and they yelled "Death to Jews" in Arabic. She was physically assaulted for months. She was forced out of the school.
Okay, pause. Yeah. If you are watching now, you are so in luck because you saw this entire show live. And if you are watching this later and you want to see the full conversation that I had with Samira as well as Daniel Maté about Jesse Brown, you can again find that at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. So Brad, does that mean we have two separate Patreons for this week? Like, are we going to do two posts? Okay, we're going to have two posts. So two Patreons. One is going to be the full show with the Samira and Daniel chat about the Jesse Brown thing, Jesse Brown Gate. And then the other one will be the full interview with John Mearsheimer and Yanis Varoufakis. And don't forget to subscribe, to like, and become Patreon members. At the $5 a month level, you get access to extended interviews, early release, and exclusive content. That's 25 cents a day, Monday through Friday. If you can't do that, but you still want to support the show, please do become Patreon members at the $1 a month level, which is $12 a year. And thank you for the super sticker ohms, $4.97. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Phantomus Fanta. And thank you to our guests. And I will see you on Friday.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
And I don't know what the I'm doing.
Antifa!